Yeah.
Agree.
Okay, anyone with access to live stream can watch.
So
Okay.
I just have to organize my kids. Be back in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What is that? Somebody coming in. I mean, somebody coming in. I wish I could find that woman. Let me get on Dad's phone. It's her first time too. But I dialed in. Sorry, Sherry.
Okay, yeah, why don't you go ahead and try and find her and stuff. So we're streaming live on YouTube, just so people know, because YouTube will record it and post it, and that saves me a step. So if somebody doesn't want their face on there or their hoof, their whatever, I don't know what to tell you about that. You can mute yourself, you can you know, turn your camera off or whatever, you know. But all these hoof chats are not private. Okay.
Okay.
If you want like private help, because see, this is all to help everyone in the world.
Okay.
And so keeping a record of this, and YouTube, 18 years I've been on there, 15, 18, I don't know how long. I know I've been trimming for 18. And then I started that YouTube, and all the videos, of course, are not accurate, because they chart my journey that I went from natural balance trimming and got led into a bunch of different barefoot guru type people. And my horses were just continually getting less sound and less sound. You know, sound is when you can at least walk down the gravel road and they don't gimp my baby once. You know, might even be able to trot. Not that you do that, because I was taught as a kid, being raised on a ranch, you don't run your horse down the road. You don't run your horse on the rocks. You know, we might be out in the country, but we will always get over to the side of the road. Never possible, even with shod horses. Okay. And another thing that we were taught, and that is tradition there, is usually you're not really using a horse fully until they're 5 years old. Another thing is at least 4 to 5 months out of the year they go without shoes. So that is all common tradition, common belief out in the West. And I knew people out there who had ranches who never even shod their horses. And now I'm understanding this more, because last week, I talked about this last week, but I'm going to bring it up again. I've always looked at the Greek friezes and the reliefs and the statues to see what the horses' feet were like, because Alexander the Great conquered the then known world on horses that had no shoes. Okay. Shoeing wasn't even invented yet. And so Xenophon, I don't even know if I'm saying that guy's name right. He was a general in Alexander's army, and he wrote about I'm trying to use the right words. He wrote about what to look for to find a good war horse. And low heels and frog touching the ground was not it. So then Bracy Clark, that I talked about last week too, vet in the late 17, early 18, mid-century, he also talked about the doctrine of frog pressure and how it was laming and crippling so many horses. And I can tell you that if your horse has mechanical laminitis, that it was probably caused by how the heels were addressed. Because I trimmed my pony into mechanical laminitis using the 1/3, 2/3 so-called principle that came up through, I don't know if Gene Ovanek started it, but he perpetuated it with the whole wild horse hoof research thing. And then it took off through other people. You can look it up on the internet. And what that means is you have 1/3, okay, you take the foot and from around the apex, there's two different ways to do it. The way Gene did it is different than the way the barefooters picked it up from him and wrongly did it. I'm going to show you a picture of that. But anyway, wrongly addressing the heels, frog pressure, over lowered heels can create a mechanical situation where the foot is pulling up and out of the capsule in the back, and the capsule is pulling forward and up, just like you take a hoof capsule off when you do a dissection, just exactly how I pull a hoof capsule off. Only the horse rotates and slips up out of the capsule just a little bit, and then the capsule is growing from a different place. And if it keeps doing that, then you have the old capsule that's still basically alive and attached to the foot, growing out the front, while you have continual new capsule growing on the back. And it becomes a mechanical nightmare. And you can't just take a rasp and nippers and make it look like a normal hoof, because the foot of the horse, it's like if you had a boot or a shoe on and you take, well, let's use a boot, because you know how you have to pull your foot out of a boot and you're actually on your tiptoe in the main body of the boot where your leg goes and your heel would be. You have to point your foot and then put it in the boot. Goes from being vertical to horizontal, and your foot is in the boot. Well, if you pull your foot out of the boot, but it's still in the, whatever the part of that boot that goes on the leg is called. Let's say your foot gets stuck there for some reason, and you are forced to walk on your tiptoe. But to everybody, you know, you're lame and crippled and can't hardly walk, and everybody's looking at you going, you say, my feet are killing me. But all they're seeing is your boot looks normal. You know, and they're going, what's wrong? Everything looks good from where I'm standing. They don't know that your foot is, both your feet, let's say both your feet are wedged and stuck in the top of your boot, you know, and that's how you have to walk and live. This is what is happening to your horse when it's foundered. It's got laminitis. Laminitis is just that the two laminas are separating and the foot is pulling its way out of the capsule due to the leverages and structure that has taken place by incorrect heel trimming. Now, it can also be a deal where the heels just got way long and eventually collapsed forward, and that's pulling the hoof capsule off, because laminitis is when the hoof capsule is being pulled off the foot in one way or another. And I've removed enough hoof capsules to know, to just, you know, you got to picture it. You watch some of these videos I've done where I'm pulling these hoof capsules off. We'll look at one here in a minute. And you'll see that because that hoof capsule grows from that foot, if it just gets pulled off a little bit, well, then your hoof capsule's grown from a completely different spot. And so this can happen multiple times. See, I've got some pictures, but I don't know where it is. When I went to visit this vet, I'd take my horse to the vet here 8, 9, 10 months ago, and he had a collection of feet. And he had the foot of a pony that you could see where that pony started growing. He probably had 4 or 5 hoof capsules stuck on there, where every time his foot rotated, he'd start to grow a new capsule. And then it would rotate again. He'd grow another one, and rotate again. He'd grow another one. And so this foot was cut in half, so you could see the coffin bone and you could see all the hoof capsules that pony tried to grow. And his foot was more the can shape like you get, wasn't the slipper shape.
Oh
So, you know, how do you address that? How do you grow off the old and grow on the new? You know, it's very, very difficult, but I know one thing, I know we're going to get it figured out. Okay, eventually. All right, so anyway, now that I'm done with that lecture, I'm trying to get things going here.
Okay.
I'm lost. I got to okay, so I'm trying not to be silent, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. I got so many windows open here. Sometimes it's difficult to get this thing going. Hold on, I need to paste on Facebook the address for the YouTube.
Yes.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hello, hello, hello.
I'm so glad you could make it today.
I'm so glad to be here with you all.
So I think two things I want to talk about today. Since two people, the two first people to kind of show up here, was Leah, and I'm sorry, Galaxy S9. Tell me your name again. I know it began with an R.
Roberta.
Roberta. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. How am I gonna? I'm gonna have to name associate here. Okay. I had a supervisor when I worked at the jail, and her name was Roberta. Okay. There we go. I will remember you now.
You can put Bert.
Bert. Okay, we'll call you Bert.
There you go.
All right. So two things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how we're going to talk about mechanical laminitis, because all of this is mechanical anyway. And most of these horses have some of this going on to one degree or another. And if a lot of us, if our horses were kept being, if we didn't have full-blown laminitis, all right, we were lucky. And a lot of us, if we kept going the way we were going with the barefoot trimming, the constant trimming out of the heels, a lot of us our horses wouldn't be here now. And so, you know, kind of what we're battling here is the fact that all you ever hear about is the supposed success stories of barefoot horses in boots. And people like us, okay, we fall to the wayside, or we get sucked into being told, oh, it's what you're feeding your horse. Not that food is not important, absolutely. Okay, but how that horse wears his feet is numero uno. And so you as the trimmer, you're mimicking whatever wear by the rasp and the hoof knife and the nippers. So, okay, so I'm gonna post this here. And I gotta get on just a second, and then we'll get going more. Okay, so I'm going to screen share as soon as I can find where it's at. Share screen. Oops, well, I need to share something that's mine so I don't get, what is it? Copyright infringement. You know? So we'll just go ahead and I got to open a photo. Just a second here. Pictures. Okay, well, we'll just do this here for now. Just a minute here. Got it. Okay. Okay, so I just put this picture up here for now while I go do one more share. You can look at it. Okay.
Mhm. Perfect.
Actually, I should put something up there else up there that I did with this foot for you to think about. Because I was thinking about this the other day about the form of the foot and the function of the foot, and how the function follows the form. Okay, the form because when the foot gets deformed, it affects the function, and that would start immediately in the foot itself, on up into the pastern, into the bones, into the tendons, into the legs, into the back, on up to the pole, everything. Because it's just like a woman in China that's had to endure Chinese foot binding. She has to learn to totally move and walk in a wholly different way. And those people get really crippled. So it's the same thing with these horses, because they are in fact enduring a form of foot binding by the way they're being trimmed. So what you're seeing here is not a sight, is not a view that very many people are really seeing. And so I was thinking about how they're always talking about arches in the foot. And I thought, well, it doesn't really have an arch. Not really. I mean, it has arches. The whole thing is an arch. When you think about it, it's a dome. And so this is one of the strongest structures that there is, this combination of an arch dome-like structure, because it dissipates weight throughout. It dissipates the weight over and around and through to the sides, but we have something more than that. Okay, there's another structure that's extremely strong, because there's different kinds of arches. And this would, while I was thinking about it, this would be a hinged arch. A hinged arch has some places in it that have some give, so that it can give when extreme weight and stress is put on it, but then it can come back into shape at the same time. And so the hinges here would be right here in the collateral grooves. And even here in the center of the frog, from the way that when the pastern is depressed down onto the digital cushion in the back of the foot, it presses down onto the frog corium. Now, this is frog corium. This is not a frog. And all this back here gives and stretches out. And at the same time it's giving and stretching out, it's resisting. All of this resists pressure, but yet it gives to pressure at the same time. So as it's resisting, that means even though the pastern, well, the digital cushion is being pushed down and the pastern is coming down, and you've seen them in slow motion, that pastern can descend clear to the ground. And so that pastern is descending down, and it descends onto that fatty digital cushion. We know what fat's like, most of us, you know, and that fatty digital cushion is like a piece of, you get a piece of roast that it's gristle and fat at the same time, and it is impossible to chew up. Like you could chew till you're blue in the face, and that thing will not chew up. Well, that's what that digital cushion is composed of, that kind of fat. And so the second it's being pressed on, it's pushing back, but it's also spreading out. You know, that it's spreading out. It's spreading out into the cartilages in the side. It's being pressed down and under the navicular bone and the deep digital flexor tendon.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the collateral grooves that are right here. They give and they spread. And okay, now only this part of the foot here is solid bone, but it's got this sole corium over it that is like a doctor, it's thick, like a Dr. Scholl's gel insert sock. And so this is all connected. And so everything is being pushed down here. The frog corium is being pushed and spreading. These are spreading a hair right here. They can only spread a little bit because they're contained by the hoof capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take the hoof capsule off this foot, the back of the foot will often lightly fall down, unless it's been already pulled down and forced down. And then after a few days, it wants to go back up to where it's supposed to be, because it's cartilage and fat. And so cartilage, if I shove my nose over to the side of my face, it's exerting pressure against my finger and wanting to go back to where it's supposed to be. And so the pastern is descending, and this is spreading out slightly in back here. But that's not the end of it, because then this frog corium here has grown, let's say, 3/4 of an inch of flexible rubber underneath it. So it descends on, the digital cushion descends onto this, which has grown this flexible rubber, and this all descends to the ground and is constantly pushing back up at the same time as the pastern is pulled back up. It helps that pastern pull back up. So it's not just the tendons and the muscles pulling that whole leg back up, and the weight of the horse, as the weight of the horse is bearing down on it, but everything in this foot is designed to push and pressure and push up and protect at the same time. So the form of this foot and the way the hoof capsule grows from this foot is vital for this horse to remain pain-free and healthy and performing at his ultimate best. So okay, we're going to look, that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at this, and then we'll also talk about mechanical laminitis, and combined with, we're going to talk about Leah's foal, and she can, if she doesn't mind, tell a little bit about the story of her foal. Do you want to do that, Leah? Maybe Leah's gone. Hello? Do you want to do an evaluation on your foal and talk about him? And I can't hear you.
I don't hear her either.
Oh, let's see. Leah, are you there? Okay, well, maybe she'll be back later. Irregardless, Roberta.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about your situation that's going on with your mechanical laminitis today, all right?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I just want to talk about the function of this foot. Now, I did an illustration. I'm going to go grab it here just a second. Okay. I think it's very important to understand how these feet function. Now, I have 2 videos on YouTube about this, about the functioning of the frog stay and the digital cushion, because see, it all works together.
Okay.
All right. And I've come to some decisions about what they call the anatomy, certain things on the anatomy of these feet, and I'm going to throw my ideas out to you to see
Okay.
what you think. OPQR. Okay. Let's see.
Two
New
videos.
share. So I kind of worked this up the other day about a dome with this foot here and the picture. It says a dome is an element of architecture that resembles features the hollow upper half of a sphere. I mean, to me, does that look like a dome to you guys? The underside of that foot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a dome is rounded vault, a vault made of curved segments, meaning an arch. Like, it's not just an arch. I mean, there would be many arches to make a dome, you know? So a dome is a rounded vault made of curved segments, meaning an arch rotated around its central axis. A masonry dome produces a thrust slope downward and outward. So domes can be divided into two kinds, simple and compound, depending on the use. I don't know which one that would be, but it's a wonderfully complex yet simple structure. A dome can be supported by columns or piers that transition to the dome through quenches or pendentives. Anyway, this is like a biological dome. And I wrote here, architecturally, the dome is one of the strongest designs because it supports the weight of the roof evenly, so that no single point on the dome supports the whole load and gives way under stress. Similarly, the arch shape at each end of the egg distributes all the weight evenly and minimizes stress and strain. You know that eggs are pretty strong, right?
Definitely.
And so I just thought this was fascinating. And what it says here, so the roof, in the center of the roof up here is the whole horse. Like, I wonder how much weight when a horse is taking a step at a full gallop and that foot slams to the ground. Everything in that leg and everything in this foot is meant to dissipate that weight. Like the tendons that they give, that the pastern descends and then comes back up. I mean, it's the suspension is a marvelous thing. And so all of that has to work together. And so if the foot is not working correctly, it's going to affect the tendons. It's going to affect everything on up. Now, there are some of you that are body workers and know way more about the anatomy above the foot than I do. Okay. So I'm imagining that what we're going to talk about here today, you're going to be able to take that and add it to what you know about the tendons and the muscles and to this and to that and how they function, and see how vital it is that we have a correct foot for all that to work right. Okay. But me, I'm just more the foot person. All right. But I'm a builder also. I've out of necessity, I've always had to fix things myself, build things myself, all this stuff. So you get an idea, and a lot of us are that way because we have animals, we have horses. We're just used to kind of doing some of that work like that. And so because of that, you know, and also because I see danger, you know, I go, well, if that happens, this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and oh no, See, that's the way the female mind works, I think. I think it drives my husband crazy because I'm always analyzing everything. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. Anybody watch Lost in Space? That was the robot, danger, danger, Will Robinson, that's me. I see this situation might lead to that might lead to that, and that, and that, and that, and oh, disaster. Okay. But it also works the other way around too. I see I could do this, it would lead to that, to that, to that, to that, and oh, okay, we're safe. And I think a lot of women are that way because we're caretakers, and we're fixers. So anyway, all right. So, but you know what? That's also the whole art of structural engineering. There are laws that they have to adhere to in structural engineering so that they can build this dome so that when you go there on vacation after it's been up 1,000 years, 1,400 years, however long, it's not going to fall down on your head. See, these structures last thousands of years. They can last thousands of years. There's examples of arches and domes all over the world that people go and visit. See, and so that's what we have here in this foot. What I believe is a dome. So knowing that, we can understand more about the principles of how this thing works. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the frog. I'm going to go here and let's see here, just a second. Open up this here, and we're just going to go through some pictures of the foot and look at the frog corium and also look at where the digital cushion is. Now, the first thing that we have to realize is what we're looking at here, even though they call it coriums, whether it's the lamina, got the lamina up here, you got the coronary band here that grows the hoof wall, that then the innermost part of the hoof wall that grows the lamina of the hoof wall.
Linda, are we supposed to be seeing a different picture?
No. Oh,
Okay.
yes. Yes. Thank you. Need all the help I can get. Okay. There we go. Okay. So all of this is covered with skin. And so I've been saying this for a while, that it's the same skin that's on the leg up here, except the leg here grows hair, and this grows different parts of a hoof capsule, which is hair is keratin, right? Everything on the hoof capsule is a kind of keratin as well. Horns on different kinds of animals, it's made out of keratin. So keratin can form different textures and different substances on the body. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me, okay? In fact, if you hear me say something that is incorrect, let me know, all right? Like if I name something and I got the wrong name or direction or something like that. All right, so this is just skin. You have your coronary band here, and really it's not a band, okay? Because a band has to go all the way around, and the coronary band does not go all the way around the foot. The coronary band goes around over to here, and then right here it stops, and it turns under the foot right here to where the bar ends. So in a sense, it, as far as band in, if it was a banded around the whole thing, it isn't. But what is a band is the periopal band that goes all the way around the top of the foot. And we're going to take a look at that. So, and I like to discuss these things about anatomy because every time I do, I learn something more that I didn't see. And so this will happen to you too. If you share things that you are learning with others that need to know, you'll learn more. and become more established in what you're learning. Okay, so all this is just skin, but it's called corium. So you have your coronary band, you have your laminar or lamina corium right here, which connects the hoof wall to the foot that it grows down. And here is where your sole corium starts. Now this is very important. This lamina comes down right to here and ends. And then the sole corium starts and it lips up over the edge of the foot. So the sole that it grows, and your white line, this is where your white line is too. And this part of the foot injects a glue-like substance into the lamina of the wall to connect the wall to the sole. And so it grows a form-fitted like this, saucer type form-fitted rim of sole around the edge of this foot here, which is very, very important to maintain, because especially here on where the coffin bone is, because the coffin bone can remodel pretty easily and it's softer than all the other bones in the body. And it's even, as far as I know, kind of a different kind of bone. And so that's where you get your ski tips, and like when you have laminitis and you have a lot of rotation, it can wear off half of it or more because it's not setting in its form-fitted rim of sole that's meant to protect that those sensitive structures right there. So then you have your sole corium. And so you have a convex ridge of sole that grows to about here. I'm going to make that larger. From up here around. Now, the tubules are straight like this, but the shape they form is like this. And they're about the width of a horseshoe. And so then as soon as you get more further under here, it goes from being convex to concave. So the sole in reality is not just concave, but that is the way that they have taught it for hundreds of years. And that is why a farrier will come and he will pare out that convex sole ridge, thinking that the sole is only supposed to be concave. And then he will set the shoe, or set the rim of the wall on a shoe so that the wall is bearing weight only. Say, now we already looked at this. It's like a dome. And if you remember what it said, it's so that the weight is dissipated to where no one part is bearing all the weight. But in the beliefs on what they teach about anatomy in the vet schools and in farriery, they believe that the wall, they're supposed to put that shoe on the wall with no weight or anything on the sole. And the purpose of that is not so that the wall bears the weight. The purpose of that is to transfer the weight of the horse to this right here. That's the lamina. Now, who came up with that idea, right? And how did that manage to stick like glue to the whole industry? That this part of the foot right here bears all the weight of the horse. That is what they teach. So function follows form, and form is dependent on the anatomy. And a person's understanding of the anatomy will determine how they trim or shoe a horse. And so you have the whole farrier and vet industry thinking that the horse bears its weight on the rim of the wall and transfers that weight to the lamina. And the reason you don't see more destruction is because for centuries, of course, they've used a hammer and they've used iron and nails to hold it all together. But for centuries, horses have been suffering because what that does is it causes constant inflammation and constant tearing of the lamina. Now, we're going to look at this foot some more, and then I'm going to show you some examples of what is taught. See, because we need not just know what is the truth, we need to know what the falsehood is so we can recognize it, and so we can explain it, and so we can understand it, because we have to have understanding in everything we do to these feet. Why is that? Because it's anatomy and its structure, biological structure and anatomy. And so if you go to the hospital and you've got to have a heart operation, you sure want your doctor to know his anatomy, don't you? Okay. Now, if people were dying and having problems like horses are having with their feet, it would have been known already, this stuff that I'm teaching now. This all would have been known. But because it's horses and because they're silent sufferers, and because you have farriers and vets that have been taught incorrect things, and they're giving you an explanation for why your horse is lame, and the horse can't tell you, okay, then who doubts that? Who doubts that? We believe the experts, right? But what we'll see is that this error is something that has been perpetuated for centuries, and the only reason it's gone on is because the combustion engine was invented, because it used to be that many people were dying too, because when you have a lame horse, he's going to trip, he's going to fall, and if you're on him, there's that possibility of injury to you. And so in the 17th and 18th century, especially in the UK and France, this was abundant. It was written about all the time, just like we hear about car wrecks in the paper. That's what they wrote about over there. And they were given, well, the error was inherited for generations. So it's not like the farriers were purposely laming the horses and causing them to do this. It was what they had been taught for generations, and it was error clear back into the medieval ages, and traditions that got passed on from father to son, and one apprentice, and certified guide to the next, to the next, to the next, and never got corrected. Okay, so let's just go through this here a little bit. Now, form is very important. And what happens is, this is the back of the foot. This part of the foot should be vertical. Vertical, in back, up behind the foot. It should not be pulled down underneath. But when the heels are incorrectly trimmed, all of this, which is cartilage and fat, can literally be pulled down and bent under the foot. Now, let me show you something here. Where's the annotate? Okay, so this form and function. Okay, I told you how the pastern descends onto the digital cushion, which is in here. Now there's a cartilage here that is about that thick, but the digital cushion goes all into here. I'm pretty sure. And then down on into here. So when this pastern descends onto this fat cushion here, these cartilages spread apart and the fat is pushed down, and then it hits the frog corium here, which would have good, healthy frog growing here. And this all works to descend down and press up at the same time. Press up at the same time. So everything is dissipating. The weight is instantly dissipating this way on the dome. And then directly down here, this is dissipating and spreading apart to go like that and hit the frog. And the frog is giving but pushing back at the same time. Now, what happens when the heels are incorrectly trimmed, or if you have a foal that is not trimmed correctly, and the frog and the periopal that grows right here is not trimmed, and it just dries out and gets dead, well, then this foot can grow and hold all this underneath where it's not supposed to be. Now, let me do this here. So the form of this is horizontal and vertical. Now this was a foot that was not deformed. Okay? Usually now this skin here is connected to there. This is where I slipped with the scalpel. And your periopal corium would be right here, growing that periopal skin, including, well, it'd be all along here and up here to there. But what I want to talk about is the shape of the frog. Because the shape of the frog is according to the frog corium here. And so the shape of the frog, in the back of the foot, you have part of it that is supposed to be vertical and part of it that is supposed to be horizontal. And so you have this part here of frog that grows that is vertical, up high in the back of the foot. Now, it has a layer of periopal covering the whole back of it, but right on the other side of that periopal, this is the frog corium, and it is to be high up in the foot, and you don't see it, but you can feel it by putting your thumb right here and pressing down. You can feel it. And the other part of the frog corium is horizontal, meaning right here, it's under the foot, right there. And so what you'll often see is you'll often see this whole thing pulled underneath the foot to where I'll have to, if somebody knows where there's a photo of it, let me know, because I seen one just a little while ago. I saw the picture of a horse's foot with the frog on it, and you can see where this whole thing is pulled totally under the foot. And they think, and we've been led to believe, that this is the central sulcus of the foot, and it's shaped like this. But the whole thing is horizontal under the foot. So that would be taking this part here, pulling it all down and forcing the whole thing under the foot. And then people look at it and go, oh, that's the central sulcus. But now I'm going to explain something to you. Now this has to be like this because this pastern right here that descends onto this digital cushion then descends onto what is called the frog stay. Now we call this frog that grows in here the frog stay. And we tend to look at the bottom of the foot and call the frog we see here the central sulcus. However, to one degree or another, the whole back of this part of the foot can be pulled under the foot. And really, it's a deformation, but we're so used to seeing it that way, we don't know it. But in reality, this part above here should be in the back of the foot, and this part underneath the foot. Okay, So let me undo this here. Okay, so if you look at this, here is your frog corium. Now, one thing I want to say about this too is that all these coriums, which are skin that grow the hoof capsule, look at the seamlessness of it. Let me make this bigger. Uh-oh, I lost myself. Oh, wait a minute. New share. Okay. Just a second there. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is like a big sock. This corium is like a big sock that's pulled on the foot, and in and of itself, it is a container. Now, the hoof capsule is a container for this foot, but this skin is a container for all the parts inside of it. And so if you move one part, then because it's in a container, if I move this here and I push it forward, well, it's going to move that, that's going to move that, that's going to move this, that's going to move this. Now, at first, I might pull part of this down and under and forward just a little, so it's only going to affect this part of the foot. But eventually, if I pull this in and push it forward enough and deform it enough, which is what is happening to pretty much every horse, every domestic horse, and a lot of wild horses too, because they wear their heels out, or they might be in a boggy area where their heels get too long and are pulled forward. And so if I pull this in like this and this forward, eventually it's going to affect this part. Now it's going to do one or two things. It's either going to make it pooch out, or it's going to shove it up into the foot. It's going to bend it, because remember, all this is cartilage and fat right here. All this cartilage and fat. Only this part is bone. And this corium, it can be moved. Like if I take this foot and I put my thumb on here, I can kind of move it around, jiggle it around. It's like a big sock. And so after everything gets pushed up here, if I twist it and push it and bind it and cram it into a smaller capsule as I go bit by bit, it's going to push on this stuff too. It's going to push on the sole corium, and everything's going to be out of place. And this foot can be reduced in size by being pulled around like this and shoved forward and put in a smaller capsule, almost up to half its size that it's really supposed to be. Now, how is that going to affect the function? Okay. So let's just keep looking here at some of these pictures. Now, here's another thing. These heels are cartilage. If I'm pulling all this, now again, this is supposed to be vertical up behind the foot, but it can be so forced down and under that the whole thing becomes horizontally placed underneath the foot. At the same time, because all this is being pulled forward, what's happening to these heels? They're being pushed upward into the foot, and the foot is being bent. Now, we started this looking at the dome of the foot, but what they have and what they're doing by trimming these heels out and bending the foot is in the center is there, and you bend this part too, so that the whole thing, let me annotate here, the whole thing would be starting to bend like this. They're creating a false concavity. See, originally the foot was flat like that. Coffin bone isn't flat. The coffin bone sets at an angle in the foot naturally. But as they're trimming the heels out, they're bending this up this way, which is bending the center of the foot that way. So this is all being bent in, and it's creating a false concavity. And it's so common. And because they teach that the foot is only concave, and they're always paring out the sole because they teach that, then they think this concavity is natural to the foot when actually what they're building is a distortion and they don't know it. And this has been going on for centuries upon centuries. They're either totally flat-footed or they have this false concavity that isn't genuine. Okay, just a minute here. Clear all my drawings. Let's see. So again, this part is behind the foot. And this is covered with hair. And then you have periopal skin that grows along the back of the foot, covering over these different areas, the heel buttress and the frog, the back of the frog. But the periopal is not supposed to be pulled under the foot. And so the periopal grows from here, and this can be bent down, clear down to where the horse is walking on these when they're supposed to be up off the ground in the back, and the hairline is clear at the ground, and all this pushed forward. How's that affecting the function? Okay. I'm just going to go through some pictures here just so you can look at it and see it again. See how it's in the back of the foot? And so now when you're looking at feet, try and notice, if I can, I'll find a picture and post it where I'll see that this whole thing is completely underneath the foot, where the bulbs are totally pulled under the foot and the horse is walking on them. And you can tell because you can see an outline of this, only it's flat and vertical under the foot instead of horizontal and up behind the foot. Now, in a correct foot, the internal heel right here that grows, we talk about the seat of the corn, which, why do they even call it the seat of the corn? Because the horses get corns there so much. It makes you wonder why they name things they do. I call it on the actual foot, the sole platform. And here's another thing. Okay, we're looking at this and we see a bare foot without a hoof capsule, and you look at the frog corium here and there is a sulcus. There is a cleft. There is a sulcus. But when it grows frog, it is no longer a sulcus. When it's correct, it is the whole thing basically is a frog stay. See, because the frog, that makes the foot stay right where it's at. That holds the foot in place. So to me, the central sulcus is on the frog corium, and the frog stay is what it grows. It grows frog, and part of that frog you call the frog stay. That's the way I see it now. So your heels should be up here. And what happens is they get shoved downward like that as this is pulled under, like so. And also this, a lot of times the frog, most of the time it's stripped out of the foot. So this mare had really a very good foot. She didn't have really any distortion other than her pillars were a little long and high and kind of distorted, but that could have been easily fixed. This is the same foot. Now this it's kind of blurry, but this is all periopal skin. The periopal skin gets wider right here to cover up the back of the foot, and it is only supposed to grow over the back of the foot and over the back of the frog stay. That's why when your feet get wet, you'll notice a white band around the whole thing. And it is a band. The periopal is a band. It surrounds the whole foot. And you see how thick it is right here. That's just periopal skin that attaches to the leg and to the hoof capsule. And again, it's about this wide all the way around till it gets right to here. And then it starts the periopal corium that grows, it gets wider around the bulbs of the foot. And as the heels grow, it attaches itself to the heels. As the back of the frog grows, it can attach itself to the very back of the frog back here. See, there's frog on the other side of that. There's frog growing in the central sulcus. My picture's blurry there, but you can see frog right there, but right attached to the very back of it is periopal skin. Here you see it. Here you see it better. Now again, look at this. What is that? That's a sulcus, right? But once it's full of frog, is it still a sulcus? Not to me, it's not. Once that's in there and that's grown in there, when I'm looking at that and I'm looking at the hoof capsule, me personally, I don't call that a sulcus. To me, that whole thing is a frog stay. And why do we call it a frog stay? Because if the foot gets pulled underneath and then the frog grows that way, it's going to make it stay that way. But if the foot is its natural correct self and it grows a correct frog in here, it's going to hold, because all this is soft and movable, moves all over the place. And so once you get decent heel buttresses growing right here, and then the frog with this, the frog growing and filling this up, which we call a frog stay, then that supports and stabilizes and helps the back of the foot stay where it's supposed to. Here we see, again, very clearly, periopal. It gets wider right here to cover the bulbs and the back of the frog. And and it grows over the heel buttresses. But this part is frog, and this little thin layer is periopal. Now, a lot of people haven't really actually known that, to tell you the truth. Okay, so you don't really see a sulcus per se on this frog. And right here, it's up behind the foot where it's supposed to be. It's growing correctly because this foot is not deformed. And so the frog is growing correctly. And look at the nice thick walls she had. Now this horse was trimmed by a farrier here and there. She was never barefoot trimmed. And she even managed to escape getting super bad trims from a farrier. And so she had anatomically correct feet. Now, where do we get 2-inch heels from? Well, from measuring a number of feet like this from your regular size saddle horses. But ultimately, this mapping is just a guide to get you in the general vicinity. And then you learning the anatomy, you learning this foot and learning how to recognize what grows from it as being in the right place and having the right form for this internal foot, because this is a real foot of the horse. This is a foot. This is just a capsule, temporary. And it can become deformed. And when it becomes deformed, it pulls this foot into its deformation with it. And then because all this has moved, it's growing that capsule in a different shape and size. And it's all gets bound up together. And so what we're doing, we get to understand this foot, and then we can learn how to create boundaries on this capsule and trim things to release the foot in increments so that it can go back to where it's supposed to be and grow that capsule correctly. And then we let it get firmly established. When you are doing corrective trimming, you cannot let anything get firmly established and take over, because the whole foot has to adjust and move. That's why you need support. You may need boots, you may need soft ground, you may need, things like that, depending on where you're at. And you have to remember something very, very important too. And that is, and Janet Hare told me this, that you have to determine what kind of foot you have, because if you see me do a video and I do a certain thing in a trim, your foot may not be like that, and that might not be something you should do to your foot. This has been the hardest part in teaching people about this, because I know their feet are in different places, but we're getting together and we're forming a network, association, group, whatever you want to call it, where we're going to start being more organized and being able to help people in figuring out what is their foot type, where are they at, what do they specifically need to do for their specific issue at the time. Okay. Because I know it's kind of hard, because you go to the YouTube channel and things are all over the place. Okay, so this is common. This is a common measurement. Now, here's the thing. The barefooters had me trimming, one of them had me trimming the heels down to 1 1/8 inch. Okay, I want you to think about this now. Look here. I've got 1 1/8 basically from here to here, 1 1/8, 1 1/4. How is it that I could keep trimming the heels down to that length? And what you'll find is on the hoof capsule, this will be right where the periopal flap ends, right here. And so how is it that we can keep trimming these heels out and not run into blood? Because it happens gradually over time. And as you're trimming the heels out and the back of this foot is being pulled down, this part of the foot is being shoved upward, and the hoof capsule is covering over your true heel. And it's got sole from here growing over it. It gets so this part isn't even growing sole. It's covered over by the hoof capsule and it's bent up into the foot. And that is why you can keep trimming like that and you're not running into blood, because the part that bleeds is being shoved further up under and is being covered over. And you have false heels that are clear up to here. That's why they have all these abscesses, because this part of the foot is covered over and under that. Okay. So see right there, now her real heel, it's hard to see, but her real heel's up here. But see, 2 inches is really what she should have had there. Okay, another thing, look here. Here's your internal heel, and your frog all fits in here. Remember I said this is like hinges. This spreads apart. This is very soft here, and this spreads apart just a little. And so also when you're trimming these heels out, now you see the depth of the heel here. Right here, it's got depth. Now look at internally, this depth here. That all gets trimmed out so that really you don't have any connection, lamina connection in the heel, because this heel's been shoved up under the foot, up into the foot. And again, this area is covered over. A lot of times you think you're cleaning out the seat of the corn up here. And you ever hear people go, well, I can see it's way under there or something. And they'll have a lot of flaky sole right there. That's because that's not the true heel right here. The true heel is clear back here, but this has all been pulled under and pushed up and covered over with false heels. See, now this in this case, she wasn't like that. She had good fitting heels right there. All right. Well, anyway, here is a good example of what I was talking about. Even though it's blurry, you can see this part of the foot is supposed to be up here. But when you trim the heels out, all this can be pulled way down under the foot. So of course that's going to affect the function. I'm just going to go through some of these here because I've got another foot here we'll look at here real quick. Now, you know, it stands to reason that you're going to want more sole here. You're going to want at least 3/4 of an inch to an inch of sole here. Okay, so here's the other foot that wasn't a good foot. You can see that the cartilages are bent and pulled under. The way you look at the thickness of the periopal band trying to hold on to the foot. This was that same foot. And I pulled the capsule off. And you can see he had a divot in the toe because the whole back of the foot was forced forward. And he was forced into a hoof capsule that was too small for him. And that puts a lot of pressure on the toe. And that's what creates that divot. And it's so common. It's so common that for years, people thought that it was part of the anatomy. And so this, you can see that, how it's damaged the foot. Now, another thing I want you to see again, though, is even here, you still see the lamina starts here, goes to here, ends, and then you have sole corium, a ridge of sole corium that grows a convex ridge of sole. And this also injects this glue-like substance into the lamina of the hoof capsule to connect the sole to the hoof capsule. Okay, so you see what barefoot trimming did to this horse by reducing the size of the hoof capsule. Now, I got to always remind people when I say barefoot trimming, I'm talking about a specific method of trimming that has a specific belief on how a foot should look. And so they don't realize it. Nobody's doing it on purpose. Well, they are doing it on purpose, but they don't know the damage it's doing. So you trim the heels out, it reduces the size of the hoof capsule. And because all this is cartilage and fat, you can bind it and squeeze it into a smaller container. Well, here's what happens when you do that. Look at the imbalance that it caused. See, I mean, this horse was put down. The vet said he had shredded tendons. So function follows form. The foot was deformed to be made to look like what they think the natural foot is supposed to look like based on one dead wild horse that wore its heels out. And that is the facts. That's factual, whether people like to hear it or not. So all is cartilage, everything else pulled down. Frog corium, remember I was telling you the frog corium everything gets shoved forward. Doesn't that look sore? But it affected his tendons too. And they think that because they're pulling, look at, now you can see a little bit of this vertically, but not much. Basically, it's all been pulled under the foot. And you have two different kinds of of manifestations in the deformation. One, the hairline can look like it's going straight almost to the ground at a 30-degree angle. But on a lot of these horses, they have such strong cartilage that cartilage keeps pulling up and pulling up and pulling up. And even though the whole capsule is getting smaller, they will look like they have heels, but it's actually the side wall that was in front of the heel. It's not the true heel. And the bar that's been being trimmed out in the heel buttress, and the wall merges with the bar and forms a false heel and a false capsule that is a smaller size than the actual horse's foot. Now, how sore does that look? So this is what a lot of these horses are running around on, and these feet will stay contained, but eventually they can, not all of them, but some of them just fall apart and you have laminitis. Because the whole time this foot is see how that's pulled down there? See how it's vertical? Or no, it's horizontal under the foot. There's a little tiny bit that's vertical. This should have been clear up here. Clear up in the back of the foot here. All this pulled back and clear back up here. See how it made the frog corium look fat?
Mm-hmm.
See? Now, when we looked at that other foot, remember I told you it pushes the heels upward. See how it bends the coronary band down and pushes the heels up and pushes the frog corium forward? In this case, it made it bulge here. In some cases, it pushes us up into the foot like that. Doesn't look like a very healthy foot, does it?
Mm-mm.
See? Imagine you're forced to wear shoes that are 2 to 3 sizes too small for you your whole life. What do you think your toes are going to look like? Your bones, the structure of your foot. What's it going to do to the form of your foot? And then that deformation, what's it going to do to the function of everything up above? What about the pastern? What's that going to do to the pastern? See, that pastern descends all the way to the ground, and yet now you have a foot that is not working to push all that back up and to also cushion it at the same time as it's all coming down. So then the tendons start to go. Now, the person I got this foot from was a professional barefoot trimmer. They were trained by Strasser in Germany. And then they came back over here and trained with some of the big names too. So they did a combination, because all these are related, okay? Jamie Jackson and Hildred Strasser, who has been banned in some countries, by the way. There are people that don't like to hear this. Okay, they were buddy in all this when natural hoof care first started. Now, I'm not dissing him or her. I'm saying that is what they made, some mistakes in their judgment. And so this is what it produces. This is what it can produce. Now, you'll see horses that seem to adapt well, but you never hear about all the failures, and there's plenty. See, you never hear about people's failures. See, I decided that's something we're going to do. We're going to have a list. When we do this, all right, and we're trying to help people correct their horses and do things right and teach people why their horses are being lame, okay, nobody's doing any of this on purpose, okay, but people make wrong decisions. And if you make a wrong decision on what the anatomy should be, there's going to be dire consequences down the line. Look at that. So lots of horses, horses adapt. Horses are silent sufferers. I have videos of this horse. He can't even walk. He was put down due to this. Now, the person that had the horse, I'm not sure they wanted to believe that. You know, it'd be kind of hard to look back. You know, we have a lot of members, me included, and we know that it wasn't the farrier that trimmed our horse into mechanical laminitis. It was us using barefoot trims that trim the heels out. And so now that's what we're doing. We're restoring. Now, I showed you that other foot and you saw where the heels were up here. Now look at, see how that presses the heels lower than the frog up in the foot. Okay. Anyway, I just felt the need. See this right here. Okay, it's been pulled down as much as it can be pulled down. This right here should be clear up here. So what kind of effect now is that having on the function of the whole pastern, leg, tendons, muscles? See, we have to understand this stuff, let alone look at that imbalance. Anyway, so there you see, this horse was barefoot trimmed. Again, we're not against a horse being barefooted in that he can go without shoes. We know they can. What we're against is the methods by which they are saying you can trim your horse and he can go barefoot, that they are over trimming the heels. They are purposely, without knowing it, deforming the foot. And it is purposeful. But they don't know they're deforming the foot because they're trying to make it look like one dead wild horse wore its heels out. And that's the God's truth. Okay, now some horses' heels will contract and others, they just spread out. You see how this horse's foot is spread out and pushed forward?
Hi, Linda, can I ask something?
Yeah.
Sorry, I joined late. I thought the Zoom was at 2.
Oh, that's okay.
So yeah, specifically talking about the heels spreading out like that. We have a thoroughbred who's like that. How do we bring those heels back in?
My dog is barking. Just a minute. Hush. Okay, well, first of all, as the heels are being trimmed out and moving forward this way, like that. Now, others will literally curl inwards like this. In this case, his are going outwards, which I find very interesting. Well, it's pulling the frog corium to the side there. See it?
Yeah. Like
that. And it's all being shoved forward. Well, then the frog grows and fills up the collateral groove. And so, and the bars, what the bars have done is
they lay right over.
Yeah, they lay over. But another thing they do is, let me find, let me see if this works. Another thing they do is, they may, like let's say your heel was back here and your bar was here. As the heels are being incorrectly trimmed and moving forward, and here's the thing, you know how they interpret this? They interpret this that your heels are getting wider and that this is good. And that you have a better platform, but that is not what is happening. And so when your frog should have been here and your heels back here and your bars, you know, relatively here, what's happening is everything's slowly going forward and the bar is moving. See it?
Right.
Like that. And you see here how this frog, see all that frog in there? Yep. As long as all that's there in that position, it won't correct itself. But if you start making new boundaries for all of that, like you come in here and you trim the frog Well, you take like the apex and you get a general idea of the shape of the frog, which would probably be about like that. And then you come in here and you trim this out right here. Now I'm mapping bars different now for this very reason. See, I was mapping the bars where I just come up here and go like that. Look, that would seem okay, right?
Mhm.
But in reality, this is a false placement for that bar. That's not the real bar. Okay, the real bar is what's growing it, and it's growing it from a deformed position. But what happens is people don't know what's happening, so they keep trimming the foot the same. And so they trim in a false bar. And so let me undo some of this. So now what I do is I would find the true apex of frog, which is probably going to be about here. And I come over here inside to the heel right there. And now I'm going to remove all of this. And I'm going to, as far as the frog, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take out at least that. Well, let's just kind of go right there. I'm going to trim out this frog here.
Okay.
Okay, because that'll allow it, first of all, to start moving back and coming in and growing back to what it's supposed to be. But as long as you have all of this, it's going to stay right where it's at. I mean, see that chunk of frog like that?
Yeah.
You know, that's only that way because this got pulled over that way. And then, you know, people trim to the distortion.
Would it also help put the pressure to send those heels back a bit by doing those two things, like with the bar and the frog? Would it also help to lower the toe more?
Lower the toe?
Yeah, so that
Well,
the angle, like, so that you have more height in the heel?
if you have some to lower, you could do that. But then a lot of times the sole and the toe is already so thin, you know.
Right.
You know, and I'd kind of have to look at that specific foot to see if the toe could be brought back or lowered a little bit, because I've done that too. I've lowered the toe to give you're talking about the side of the foot more elevation.
Yeah.
You know,
She seems to have a toe callus right at the very end anyway. And I'm wondering why she has that toe callus if like she's so wide and low in the back.
Well, she would just have one because that's the natural growth. Because see, they don't really have a toe callus. What they have is a convex ridge of sole that grows around the rim of the foot. And that is mistaken for a toe callus.
Yeah, I called it that, but I know what you mean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she's got that thickness right there, right near, like just at the toe, right in front of the frog, the apex of the frog, way up near the wall. So I've been thinning that a little bit, just to keep the wall from being attached to it.
Okay.
But it's like those wide heels, I'm thinking, how am I ever going to get those to contract a little bit, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. You either need them to contract or to widen out.
Yeah.
You know, well, I would just start here because I've done that before, because I had a Morgan I was working on, and I mean, his was way spread out.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I just started removing this, and because here's the thing, all of this is cartilage and fat has a place where it wants to be anyway. And so in reality, that whole foot is pulling inward like that. Even though we can't see it, this wants to be in like that. It also wants to be released up in here.
So if we make space there in the collateral groove, the natural forces would automatically start pulling it back in? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would clean all this out, make sure you clean your apex out. And all that. And you'll probably find a dirt line under here too. Well, that's not your foot. Well, if your bars are like that, you'll find a dirt line under there, which shows that that bar shouldn't have been there anyway.
And you know that little nubbin kind of thing that you called where the hoof, in the buttress where the bar joins the hoof wall?
Right here?
Yeah, we should separate that too, right? When you say take the bar down there, like bring the bar in, that
Well,
little point, no?
the bar, well, what I do is
Make a
when you take it
separation?
down like this, it gets lower anyway,
Okay,
you know. But I have done that before too. I mean, you can see on here, there's usually a lot of times there's a crack that goes all the way down anyway. But mainly, let me undo this. Mainly, because look at how the bars go here. Now here, this one's all smooshed up, but ultimately they go down, they're lower. Just a minute. The foot is shaped like this. See?
they're angled down.
Yeah, angled down. So the bar is actually down here, not up here level with the wall. Say, but what happens is we've been taught to trim them so that they're almost level with the wall here.
Mhm.
See, but that's not the shape of the foot. So shouldn't we be trying to develop our trim that is more the shape of the foot itself on the exterior? You know, see, this goes down, this one goes down here like that, and you kind of see that bar going like that, but this one's up like this. And you'll see a lot of times people have high bars up like this, and they talk about bars bearing weight. Okay, well, I would say most of the bar wall I've seen is even kind of different from hoof wall to a degree. Some of them anyway, to where they're more crumbly, and they actually, on these horses, I got 4 horses out here that they had to put down at a rescue, and they were all self-trimmed pasture mates. And it was interesting to see how in self-trim they were trimming their own bars. But that, I'm not going to let my horse do that, you know, but it teaches me something about bar wall. And it
May I ask a question, Linda?
Sure.
The bars could be 2 degrees more down. Sorry for my English. Maybe it could depends on the dome, what you explained before. I guess this could be the reason why it should be not on the same level as the wall should be.
Yeah.
And otherwise the dome wouldn't work, because this should be the right at the end of the bars should be the center of the hoof, isn't it?
Yeah. And look here, we'll go over to this picture. Here's the bar. Well, the bar grows right here, but there's the bar lamina right there.
Well, we see no other picture
in the dome. Oh, sorry. Da, 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 da. Right there. Here's the bar. Let me draw on it again. Wait a minute.
Still don't see the picture. Oh, okay, there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Here's the bar lamina right here. And so the bar corium is just right in here. I can't really see it here, but it'd be the same. You know, but yeah, look at the dome. You know, the wall is higher out here. And so function. So obviously it's that way for a purpose, you know, and all those horses, their feet, the bars that were overgrown, I had to be real careful that I didn't break off a chunk, because I wanted to save them so I could show people how they were self-trimming in that pasture. It was 4 standardbreds, and they were all healthy, except they all had something wrong with them and they were unadoptable, and the rescue couldn't afford them to do them and a bunch of others they were doing at the same time because of the hay situation around here. And so they were 25, 30 years old. They were all put down together in an instant and buried in the same grave in the pasture they lived in for the last 5 years. I thought that was an honorable thing to do. Didn't have to go to a sale and wind up on somebody's plate, you know?
Right.
And so all their feet, except for one that was blind, totally blind. I had no idea. I've been going by that pasture for years. And one horse was totally, completely blind. And he didn't have a mark on him. You know, he hadn't run through any fences or nothing. But the guy said he would get a little upset if he went to sleep and the other horses got up and left him. You know, his feet were the only feet that were long. They were misshapen and long, but they weren't real unhealthy or anything like that. They all had really healthy feet. And so I thought, I've got 4 horses that were barefoot trimmed with that method for a number of years that were all put down due to being lame. And then I got these 4 horses that were not lame, but they did have problems. You know, one was blind, one had one eye that was blind, one had a messed up back. And so I thought, I'm going to do these dissections. We're going to look at all these feet. We're going to look at the barefoot, natural, barefoot, human trim compared to the natural, barefoot, horse did it himself trim. I thought that'd be a good thing, you know. So,
Sure,
but
that'd be great. That'd be
yeah,
interesting.
but the bars, they would just chunk off, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, all right.
Linda?
So, yeah,
Linda, when
Yeah.
when you're mapping the bars and you're drawing the line from the side of the apex line there and to the heel, how do you know where to put the line at the back by the heel? How high up on the heel wall do you put the line for the bars?
well, for me, I'm just coming right up to the end of the inside of the heel. Like I'll take that protractor and set it on there
Mhm.
and just,
Could you go to the other picture with the
Yeah.
hoof? Okay,
yeah,
thank
just a
you.
minute, clear.
But are you putting your protractor at the top of the buttress or down inside the wall some?
Kind of inside up against the heel right there. I'll show you here. Now, right, wrong, indifferent, that seems to have been working for me. And I noticed it seemed to be working in the way I did it before, because it was bringing that bar back, the boundary back more. And I noticed when I started bringing those bar boundaries back more, I started having more progress with growing in my heels and my heels moving than I did before. Okay, just a second here. Let me find, let's see. New share. Okay, so just a second here. Okay, so this is obviously a deformed foot. We could go look at the regular foot too. Let's see here. Annotate. All right. Draw. So once I find the true apex and come over to the side here, see, I would come up inside the heel here. Take my protractor, I lay it on there, and I just bring it up and I lay it right on that heel. Like that, inside.
Level with the top of the buttress.
Yeah, kind of just the other side of it,
Okay.
you know. Like here. Now see, that's interesting because here it doesn't look like you would take off too much. But then again too, got to remember this foot's really wide, but I might see some more that I would take off once I took that off. If I saw a dirt line under there, I might go ahead and take off wherever I saw a dirt line. Does everybody know what I mean by a dirt line?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like a line of dirt crack, kind of just
Yeah,
at the edge of the
like
bar.
yeah, dirt between the sole and the bar. So I know that that shouldn't be there. That bar shouldn't be there because it's laying on the sole. And so, but what that'll do, and a lot of times what you have to do too is this deal, as your heels are growing in, because you see this curves around right here and it's formed its own false heel with the bar there. And so a lot of times what you have to do is you're going to have to also remake this connection here so that it's like that, because you'll get a deal here that goes like this kind of. I don't know if I'm doing that right. And you've grown some heel in, so you have to reform it, so to speak, and take off you'll find there'll be a nubbin here that you have to take off so that you're forming your new heel to bar connection area here. Okay.
Linda?
Yeah.
But right at the end where the heel buttress is and the bar comes attached to the rearest point of the heel, do you detach the bar from the heel wall that's coming into this triangular bit? Do you take the bar a little bit lower than the actual heel wall, or does it have to be on the same plane? Do you know what I mean?
It can be lower.
Yeah, that's what I was saying by taking out that little nubbin. But
yeah,
you know what
I thought
found?
that's what you meant.
Yeah, I found that when I did that, the back of the heel collapsed a bit.
Oh,
forward.
did it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a
It
bit
happened to
weary
me
about
too.
that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Well,
why I wanted to verify.
I'm glad you spoke up then. So just be warned that that can happen too.
Yeah, I found with Dolly, if I totally detached it, even though it wasn't sticking up very far, like only a 1/4 inch, that heel would collapse without the support of the bar right at the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and also I find that my heels get cracks in them. Just in front of the heel buttress on the side of the wall, the heel cracks, and it's really annoying because I'm trying to keep that wall stable to get the heels up, but basically what I then have to do is bevel the side wall of the heel to stop the wall breaking off, you know.
Okay.
Has anybody else had that problem as well? So
I do have that. I have that on one side, on the lateral side of the hoof there in the back. Yeah, I do.
So then you guys are saying that sometimes you go ahead and leave a little more of that to just keep the heel stabilized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's
a tiny bit. Yeah.
Okay.
What else could be causing these cracks in the side walls of the heels just in front of the heel buttress? What else could that be? Because they break off, and then it's really annoying because I have to bevel them. I have to bevel the heel wall on the sides, otherwise it's just gonna break off, and then it's counterproductive.
I found that for my horse anyway, I found that it's because of an imbalance, and that he had the lateral heel was run forward more, so it was the high-low kind of thing in the back, you know. So I've had to take down the medial heel to kind of balance, like you did, Linda, like you showed before, how you have to lower it, even though they're the same length, you have to kind of lower the higher one so that it balances it more, because there was too much pressure on that wall, so it made it split, like they're in the back, just at that heel.
Okay. I'll have to pay attention to that as well, because also on one of my mare's hind hoofs, I'm actually seeing now that I'm not sure on which side I'd have to see, but I actually have cracks down the wall, sort of basically starting from the pillar area, going right down to where we just said the side wall of the heel. Yeah, it's so I'm having to bevel probably more than I would normally do, but it's basically, yeah, it's as if the heel wall is split from the heel, or from the toe quarters to the heel area.
Yeah, I
So
had the
could it-
exact same thing.
Okay, so you
Could it
say
be
that's
that
from
the-
the
that
heel
the hoof is
imbalance, so
expanded?
one high and one
Yeah, it was
more
because
low.
he tends to stand with all of his weight on his outside wall, so it puts too much
Mm.
pressure there, and he wears the outside heel more, so he was imbalanced. So even if I measured and they were both exactly the same length, he was off balance because that heel would run forward.
Huh.
Okay, so they were the same length but not the same height. That's what
Yeah,
you
it was
mean.
really
So, yeah,
deceptive because I'd
I
measured like 3
understand.
times and I'd say, what?
Mhm.
They're the same length. I don't understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
Look from the
Well,
back.
because sometimes they walk not in balance because
That's-
the bones are in balance too. So
Yes,
that could
yeah,
be yeah. So
Mhm,
and
okay.
another question for me is it a length crack or a horizontal crack? What you find?
No, it's the length, so it doesn't go up into the hoof via direction to the coronary band. No, not that.
Yeah, it's horizontal.
It's horizontal, so basically through the whole heel wall. And if I wouldn't bevel it, it would like break off the heel wall horizontally through the whole length of the hoof, if you know what I mean.
So
Yeah.
you have a crack like this?
Yeah, that's exactly what I had to.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, then
Okay, well, something too, we got to remember here the whole time is that these are not the real heels to begin with. Okay.
that was my first idea, Linda. Okay,
Ah.
are these the real heel buttress? I don't think so.
Yeah, they're not the real heel buttress anyway,
Yeah.
so they're going to respond in weird ways. And sometimes we're just going to have to do imperfect things. Sometimes I guess, you know, if you want, leave some of that as we do more and we get more data in from what people do and stuff, we'll have more answers and
I
stuff
find
like
it-
that.
I found that it's actually going away now in the last couple of trims because I lowered the opposite wall, so the
Okay.
medial side. I
So it
lowered it
took
a
the
lot
pressure
more.
off.
Yep, and I beveled. I did bevel where it was fractured all along there.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to, otherwise it's just gonna break off, and it usually breaks off more than than it should. So yeah, if you bevel it, yeah. But I mean, I'm finding as well at the moment I have to bevel sort of the false heel wall just in front of the buttress as well. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm going to lose too much hoof wall. So I mean, obviously I leave the inner hoof wall because it's only the outer hoof wall that breaks off, but I have to bevel it, otherwise it just breaks off even more than it should. Yeah.
Do you
It's
have
so
a
nice
picture
to
of
know that
that
other people are having the
specifically by
same issues.
chance?
Yeah, so I was wondering if it had to do with this bar connection to the heel wall, or if it was something else. So you obviously think it's the imbalance in the heels, huh?
That's what I find with my horse, but he's kind
okay,
of
that's
lazy.
good to know. So I will pay attention to that. Yes, thank you.
Because it throws a lot of weight on that side.
Yes.
And stuff, but also remembering that no matter what we do here, we're not going to have anything perfect. It's where we're headed, you know. So you have to use your own judgment too and try other things. And then this is why we get together too, so we can discuss these things. And
do you ever heard? Oh, sorry, Linda. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Do you ever heard about the balance pads? Is another idea for give the muscles, the nut muscles, they can pay activity attention. Is a balance pad where the hoof or the whole horse can stand up with it, and freaking out the English word for it. What's between the bones, like cartilage? It's not cartilage. It's cartilage between the bones. Okay, so okay. If you let the horse stand on the balance pad, yeah, it's like very soft, and I don't know if you ever heard about it. Otherwise, I can give you a link afterwards.
Yeah, I have kind of
Um,
heard something about that.
Then they can pay attention for this hoof, especially for the balance, and maybe there's a chance to refresh the cartilage to get the hoof, to get the whole feet, not just the hoof, the whole feet, include the bones and shoulder and everything, get back to the right balance.
How does that
And
work? Is that something like that you put in like a boot?
no, you just let them stand up there while you can make them fine. So you can brush them or something like that. It's like, I guess, 15 minutes. They can stand on this little pad, and they have to balance by themselves. So it's not just a flat, hard grounds. It's very soft and smooth, and they have to balance by themselves. So they can train the muscles and the tensions. I don't know what it means. And can train it by themselves. So there's a chance to refresh all those soft stuff between the bones and between bones and skin, also the fascia. I don't know, it's the same word in English. And then you have the chance to get them the same length. I guess so. Could be.
Does it make an imprint of the foot on the pad?
Pardon?
Does it make an imprint of the foot on the pad?
No,
Yes.
don't do it. It should not do it, because it has to be go back in the normal shape.
But it's memory foam, right? So
No, it's not. No, it's not the memory foam. It's more than silly. It's like it's similar to the DIY, to the support material. Similar to that, you can't deform it.
You can't deform it, so it's got
Yeah.
memory. But it will move, but it'll go back to whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the horse stands flat on this, it's like that size from the hoof, a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And the horse can stand on it, and it has to balance the hoof by himself.
Does the shape go back immediately, or does it kind of come up like?
No, immediately.
Oh, okay. Huh. Well, that's got to be some pretty tough stuff, like neoprene.
Yeah,
like
something like that. Yeah.
Thick neoprene or something.
Yeah. It reminds me on the ground that I got on the place where I trim my horses.
Okay.
It's an underground you use for sports. And it's like a fall saving ground. So it's not that very soft, but it's soft.
Huh,
And if you fall down, you don't crack your head, but it hurts if you fall down. But I can do a link on it, or I can send you a link for it, because I guess this could be helpful for get the horses back in balance, like body work or something like that.
Can you like stand one foot on it while you're trimming another?
Well, maybe diagonal. You can stand the hind foot on one of these pads and trim the front foot.
Oh, okay.
But put him on the front and trim the other front foot could be a good challenge.
I'd like to see what it looks like. Okay.
I think it's called surefoot pads in America, isn't it?
Surefoot pads. Okay. All right. So on the heels, okay, you still got, even though I tell you what I think, what's worked for me, back and forth. All right. You still have to make your own judgment and stuff. And then we can talk about stuff like this too. And the more people that are doing it, the more we find out and what works, what doesn't work for you. But the thing I want you to remember is that you're never going to be able to do everything just right because you haven't got a right foot. Okay. So what we're doing is we're finagling. I know that sounds weird. Yes, we are finagling. We are trimming just to make new boundaries, to try to get this foot to release, to try to get it to grow in, to where then we do have what, like I'm on my horse now, I can pretty much do a good trim. I don't have gaps in the quarters. I don't have a lot of hoof distortion. So when I trim, I feel good about it. But for many years, okay, while I was learning this, like I couldn't rasp the foot flat because I'd have big, well, there was separation in the quarters. And if I tried to rasp them to get a clean white line, there'd be a big arch. And it was because the foot was deformed, the capsule was deformed. And so we just have to work with things in a way that will facilitate the, hopefully that capsule gets corrected by helping the inner foot move a little closer to where it's supposed to be to grow it that way. So I want you to remember that you're going to have ugly stages. Don't get freaked out. Okay. You're going to have ugly stages, just like if the bulbs decide to kind of release out the back and you still got a smaller hoof capsule that isn't caught up. It makes your heels look way run forward, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is your bulb that's been compressed and pulled forward just released because you finally created enough boundary that loosened up some of that hoof capsule and it grew in different places that it was able to release that foot. That whole foot is under tremendous pressure to want to release to begin with. That's why a lot of times in real wet season, people say their horse's feet fall apart. That's because that periopal band has tightened and tightened and tightened and grown to bind that foot as it was being incorrectly trimmed to try and hold on to that hoof capsule. And then when it gets really, really wet, that periopal loosens up and that inner foot is under such pressure, it just pops out the back. When I was in California at this rescue, this woman had about 10, 15 big old thoroughbreds in this arena, and they had a barn there and stuff. There were rescues, and I was looking at another horse she had, and I was trying to explain to her how in corrective trimming you have to have moisture so things can move. And she goes, oh, and she just got done telling me how good the feet were on the horses in this arena, how they didn't have problems. But then when I brought up moisture, she says, oh, but yeah, for corrective trimming, she says, oh, but yeah, but when it rains around here, all those horses out there in the arena go lame. Well, you know what that's saying, right? Therefore, they've got hoof distortion that's being bound and held together by that periopal band. And then in the rain, that loosens up and the foot loosens up. There's nothing for that foot to loosen up into. So here's another thing. If you've got a really bound foot that is, you know, half the size it should be, and it's all compressed and bound and tied up in there, it has to be gradually released and grown back so that it has something to go into, say. So that's why we don't want to over remove periopal when we still got a small hoof capsule. We need to gradually grow that hoof capsule back in and release that periopal accordingly. All right, so anyway, so now does everybody kind of understand what I was teaching you about this frog corium here? You know, that this is the sulcus, and what grows in it is the frog and the frog stay. I mean, it's kind of different. All right, so just a second. Let's see. Yeah, nothing's going to be perfect. We'll just look at some of these pictures here again. Then we're going to. And most of these feet happen to be the same length from the hairline to the ground. Almost every one I've ever measured. So that's why we can kind of tell sole depth as long as the hoof capsule's at a decent decent angle. You know, you have less sole depth if you've got a really long toe and less angle. So you see, there wasn't a lot of sole depth on this horse, was there? Okay, well, I'm knocking out of there. And we're going to talk, I'm going to talk to a couple of you about your issues. Leah, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Ah, okay. Okay, would you just like to share kind of what's going on with your colt?
Well, with my colt, I was told that he had a predisposition to have DSLD, and I was so worried about that. So that's why I sent you some pictures of his hoofs, and they had been bound because when he was a foal, well, I wanted to do things right by him. You know, I wanted his hoofs to be perfect. So I called a farrier to start trimming him when he was 1 month old. And what he did was just trim the heels out of him. So I took over a few months ago.
Are you still there? I think you muted yourself.
Did I? Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Was that me?
I can hear
I
her.
can't hear you.
I can hear her.
That was me. I muted myself. I muted you. There you go. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. So I took over a few months ago myself because I was seeing that that his hooves were not in a very good state, and they looked clubby too. They looked very bound and clubby. So I started trimming them myself, and they look better, but they're still, I think the capsule is still too small for his hoof.
Yeah. I'm gonna find the pictures and show them. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Okay, just a second here.
And I was also worried about this horrible disease, because whatever I've read about it, it always ends up you have to put down the horse. And
I know
my
it.
baby, I just couldn't.
I know your baby. Yeah, so that's why I do not believe. Let's see. Okay, we were talking about the periopal, right?
Yes.
Okay. There's some of those things we might not get into. But I want to show your horse's feet and stuff so they'll understand and explain something that's going on here. Just a minute. I'm gonna share screen.
Yes, you have also the front, not only the hind end, but the front hoofs, where you can see that that's this hind. That's the latest trim that I've done, and you can see there's also like a tiny crack that you've been talking about there.
Right here.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and he's got that. See this here? His foot is bent down. Okay, and so you bend this down like that, and then this part's being held, and so it creates a false arch right there, and that's why it's cracking. See, because you haven't got a tight with the when the foot is supposed to be flat. Just a minute. Let me reshare here a second after I find a picture. Hold on.
As you can see, the hooves are very, very small, and he's not that small. I mean,
yeah, I'm going to show that one picture we're looking at too, of that painting, because you can really see the back of that colt's feet are expanded, aren't they? Even in the painting, I can see it anyway. Let's see here, new share. Okay, I just want you to look at this foot here. Okay, see how the foot sets flat there? Yeah. Okay, and so the wall grows down. It connects to the white line here and the sole, and then grows down some more so that it would all be connected and right here. But then when this foot gets bent, it bends this part too. Just a minute here. Bends this part too, so that instead of being flat like this, it's like this. that false concavity. And so since there isn't a good connection of wall to sole here, it can break out like what you see on your foal, your colt there. Is that understandable? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. But
Kinda.
that is also happening with my other horses too.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
same crack.
Yeah, and it happens to a lot of people because the wall is not connected right here because the foot is bent. And also the horn tubules that should be connected in here, the lamina, and then the thickness of wall that should be connected and growing here like that. Usually because they've removed the heel, they're at an angle going like this. And so there's no right connection in here. And that's why it breaks out. Let's see, undo.
So, but what should I continue do? Should I continue doing what I'm doing, or should I do something else to avoid this? Or is this just a normal process?
I wouldn't worry about that and stuff because that'll go away. It's okay to have a little gap here too, because if the foot is bent, if this is just full in, see, you need things to be a little flexible, you know, so that the foot can flatten out and this can all move back this way. Let me move this just a minute. Let's see. Let's just look some more. Now, see, that was before, right?
Yes, that was a month before.
Okay, so see, already you have progress in what you see right here. Look at the cartilage. See, this is the thing that we do is we want to look at what's above the hairline. What's above the hairline tells you a lot more truth than when you're just looking at the sole. Okay, so the cartilage, well, if you know what the cartilage is supposed to look like to begin with. And so the cartilage on this colt would be, just a minute here, more like that. And so he's already expanded some, and you see this bulb skin here. That's too wide, because what happens is because his foot's growing, and so it's trying to expand out the back, and he hasn't got enough hoof capsule. So what you're going to be doing is growing in this hoof capsule so that it all grows in. All this will grow in right here. And this will all expand up here, and you won't have this wide bulb like that. It's going to come back like this. See there? Now, when you're looking at your horses and you want to know that some of the foot's trimmed out and the foot is bound in a smaller capsule, look at this skin back here. Now, it will be a tiny bit wider right at the very back here. Okay, but if the width starts up here, let me undo this. If the width, look at it. Goes like that, you know that you have a bound foot. Because ideally, let's see, ideally, this should go back like probably about to here.
And will that happen, Linda?
Just get a little bit wider there. See? Yes, it will happen. Let me show you a picture of a horse that it happened to. Just a minute here. Just a second.
May I ask Leah a question?
Go ahead. Yeah, speak up.
Thank you. Leah, you said that the picture that we're looking at right now was a month later than the previous picture Linda showed
Yes.
with the big bulge in the sidewall there.
Yes.
And so you also said that the farrier was trimming out the heels. So in that month's time where you got that change, were you simply leaving the heels alone and just mapping and taking what was necessary in the toe and the quarters?
Yes, I mapped and I trimmed the frog and the back of the hoof, but it was very difficult because it's very hard to trim, and especially because he's very young. But one day I managed, when I picked him up from the field, and his hoofs were so soft because it'd been raining, so it really helped me trim really well, the frog really well, and that, I think, is what made that big change. But I did map and leave the heels longer, and that is what the result that I got. But I don't know if I should do more.
See here, it's Elena from Hungary. I had a similar case, and that's how I found Linda, because I started to trim my foal as I was taught, and I ended up with really bad hooves, and that's how I just started to prove. I found Linda. My question is, do you have photos before the farrier touched the feet? It's just for my interest.
Did I have what?
Do you have photos of foal's hooves before the farrier touched them?
Yeah, photos from
well, I did take pictures, but he was very young. He was a month old, so I do have them. They were quite distorted. I have to find them, and I can send them to you. But yes, I do. I took pictures of his hoofs. And they were like, they had a very, very long toe, and they were like slippered up the back. You know, the heels were like. They were not straight.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Maybe it's not important, but I just have interest.
No,
Thank you.
I'd like to see it too.
Yeah,
you know?
I have a lot of pictures of foal's hoofs. Actually, if somebody is interested, maybe I can send to Linda.
I am.
Yeah. Okay, I will send over. Just organize them.
Yeah, good. I'm interested.
Okay, I'll check, because I took lots of pictures. So.
Great.
So I'll check them.
Yeah, because we need to know more about these folds, because see, I don't know who I was talking to you, and I was talking earlier too, I think, to someone about how they've started to trim these foals to think they're developing the back of the foot by trimming the heels out and forcing the frog and the bulbs on the ground.
Well, that's how we were taught. We were taught basically that you have to cut, you have to trim, to take down the heels as soon as you can.
Oh man,
on the foal.
I was worried about that.
At 2 weeks, or whatever.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And I just share a little bit of my story, and I can share maybe the photos, just make a post about it.
Yes,
because we live on really sandy ground. We just have sand. And if the horse is not on a pasture, they're in deep sand, basically, or the pasture is half sand, half grass. And I was always wondering, because in our area, everybody was complaining that the horses have flat feet with no concavity, and it was really a problem for lots of owners. And then I was like, okay, but I was looking at my foal, and he developed an extreme concavity. He had a conic, and it's a Polish half wild horse and Arab blood mix. And I was like, wow, he has excellent concavity. I was so happy. And then when I found Linda, I realized that it's like sucked in capsule, basically. He looked like, he had huge concavity, huge.
From being hoof bound.
Yes, exactly. So it was somewhere up, I don't know, in the hoof, everything. And then I started, and you know what happened? It's very interesting because I started to trim the periopal and his hoof started to be very unstable because the structure wasn't healthy. So his hoof started to be more deformed. Because the periopal wasn't, the structure wasn't healthy, and I removed the periopal, and it made, he didn't have any heels to hold the capsule together. Very interesting.
And see, that's why I've been debating on removing, as good as it is one of the videos that's on the Hoof group on removing periopal, because I've been myself concerned as I have learned more. Okay. I have been concerned about the aspect that you just spoke about. That
I think you should really be careful about, and you should consider a lot of factors before you do it. And if the hoof stability is compromised more, then you have to be very careful because you can do more damage.
Yes, I absolutely believe that, especially if it's wet, if it gets wet and it rains after you remove that periopal. Now,
and I think, you know, what saved him was because we have a very dry climate, and I did it in summer. So it was holding on, but if he would be on like wet pasture, that would cause some big damage, I think.
I agree. I agree. And so I'm going to remove that video. And
I think we really need to make a point, you know, that you shouldn't do it in a mechanical way. You have to think, and you have to consult first.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Controlled release. Just like, because as the feed, just like here's Chester, who is a wild horse, had a great start, 2.5 years in Nevada. Okay, then, just enough to get his feet really going. Then he was captured, and then he spent 6 months in BLM holding facility, and then he was adopted here in Kansas by my neighbor Claude. And he's like 5 years old, 5.5, 6 years old here. And the farrier wasn't doing a terrible job, obviously, but his foot was still getting some distortion here. And so I started trimming him. And there was a period where I couldn't trim him for like 9 months, which I'm not going to share all that situation that happened, but it wound up being a good thing. And we learned a lot about periopal and how periopal works to hold a foot together. But anyway, so then when I did trim him, this is what we had here. And you can see his foot is still better than it was here. Okay, he's grown hoof capsule in. I had trimmed him maybe 3 times before this trim. And so, and you see the quality of the hoof wall is just really astounding. But like what I was showing you here about periopal, what happens, you know, this horse has very strong cartilages. So if the heels were trimmed out, his cartilages and hairline will refuse to go like that. It will pull back up. And as it pulls back up, it's going to grow and stretch this periopal skin here that's connected to the leg right here and to the hoof capsule here. And so that's why you will see, just a minute. That's why you will see, look at the periopal skin up here. See the width of it? But where now it starts to get wider here. See there? That's how you can tell that the hoof capsule is being trimmed out. The bulb is actually out the back of the hoof capsule, and the periopal skin starts to get wider in here. And as you get more correct, this starts getting more uniform, like so. Except right here. Well, look at it over here. Same foot. Look at the width. Okay. Look at the width of the periopal to here. Now here, that's a little flap there. It still goes pretty much like that, but then it goes down like this. Now, why is that? Because the anatomy changes right here. Okay, instead of instead of the coronary band that's growing the hoof wall right here on the side of the foot, it no longer grows it on the side of the foot here. It does this. Let's say this is the inner foot. Okay, and this is the coronary band. Coronary band goes like this. Right here. And then the heel buttress grows and supports underneath right here. The heel buttress grows like this. Let me get a different color so you know for sure. Maybe this green. That ain't a good color either. Find some other. Let's try blue. Maybe a little whiter. Heel buttress grows like this under here. And it's a big, solid, triangular chunk of hoof wall that grows right here. This is why this periopal just starts getting just a little wider here, so it can cover up the back of this bulb here. So what you see here is that after I did this trim, this is 5 weeks afterwards, some of the wall grew and pushed up here, and the foot slipped into the capsule to where now you have the foot completely relaxed and fitting in a totally correctly fitted hoof capsule. And but what happens is this periopal band, as the foot is being incorrectly trimmed, it could get long and collapse forward, or it could be being trimmed out. Irregardless, what the periopal band that goes around the whole hoof does is it starts tightening up and doing things to hold that capsule on the foot. See? So this is how you can tell that your wall here is growing in. See, what you want to do is, this is lacking wall here. It's got, this is where your buttress is here, and it's pulling down, pulling this down, but it's not wanting to stay down. So this one is stretching up. So again, it gets wider here. But a lot of times what you'll see, if the periopal band can hold it, this cartilage is going to be pulled right down like that. See, this would come down here like that. But again, he's got strong cartilage, and it's in Kansas. So the periopal band gets wet, and so it enables it to stretch and the cartilage to pull back up. That's why you'll see some horses with huge bulbs. What that is their heels have been being trimmed out, but they got strong cartilages and there's moisture, and so the cartilages pull back up and they stretch all this periopal skin, plus the periopal skin grows, and you wind up with this big bulbous skin here. You look at this foot over here, this minute. Clear all drawings. Just a second here. This foot here is correct, about as correct as you can get. I mean, it's 5 weeks post trim. Could have a little shorter toe there, you know, but technically this is an anatomically correct foot. It's got the correct size hoof capsule for the foot itself. Okay, And so that's what we're trying to do here ultimately is just gradually grow this wall in. See how you're wide here, you know, and so you're going to gradually allow this wall to grow in and this to loosen up and do a what you would call a controlled release of what's under there. Let's look at the bottom of the foot. Now you can really tell the difference.
Yeah, Linda, I sent you a bunch of pictures on the Facebook Messenger of his hooves when he was born and later, so you can see the complete distortion of the hoof.
Okay, yeah. Let me go over there.
I was just amazed by the difference of the shape of the hoof because of the farrier.
And that's
his heels.
Well, that's what they're being taught to do, you know.
It was really interesting if you could show those pictures so that everybody could see what they looked like before and now what this looks like. Capsule, very, very short, small, contained capsule, and he used to have a much bigger hoof, and that was, I think, due to being.
Okay, I see it here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
okay, so
get here. Yeah, he's just a baby foot. Yeah, he's putting a little, and you can see where he wants to have up behind here. He wants that to be vertical. Let me get this bigger here. Can everybody see that foot? Oh, wait, new share.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, can you see it? It's like what I was talking about. Part of this is under the foot and part of it's up behind it. But right now he hasn't got any. There's just a crack there. So there's no real frog growing in there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. For a foal. Oh yeah. Taking the heels down, pulling all this down.
I think that was January, these photos in January.
This January?
Yeah.
Is this before? Oh, so this is now?
No, sorry, January last year.
Oh, last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took over about, well, no, this is not January. This I think was, I don't remember. I sent you all the pictures of the hooves that I took.
Okay, well, he's not very old. I mean, you can tell he's a little guy.
He's 1 year and 8 months.
Yep, that's more of a baby foot.
So there's even younger pictures of his hooves. If you have a look at all of them. I think that is the hind that we were looking at. That is the same hind that we were looking at before.
Oh yeah, and they're saying, oh, he might have DSLD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at this. I just looked at that. See, what do you expect that pastern to do? You know, I want to enlarge that. There we go. New share. What do you expect that pastern to do when you've removed, you're not allowing the foot to expand out here? Okay, and you're trimming out the heel and you're forcing the toe to be long. See, that is a recipe that is a trimming recipe. Trimming induced DSLD is what that is. See, but you have to have a mechanical mind to see that. You know, you have to understand what the foot is supposed to be and realize that he's supposed to have, let's see here. He's supposed to have, let's see, we're going to look at something here. At least that much cartilage on the back of his foot supporting all this. So can people see why that would affect the pastern? When the pastern is supposed to descend onto the digital cushion, which is in here, and then the digital in here, and then the digital cushion descends onto the frog corium that descends onto the frog, and it's all pushing all this back up. Well, you ain't got none of that there. So this little pastern and his tendons are just pretty much all on their own. You know, blam, blam, just like you ever had a car where the shocks were really bad and you just bottom out, you know? So why wouldn't that affect these tendons? See, there's nothing for it to land on here, to be pushing it back up, pushing it back up, pushing it back up. This is it's really an atrocity what's going on.
Can I, Linda, I'm sorry, I have something crossed my mind because I work with the body and I noticed the posture, it's the hind legs we are looking at the moment. These are the hind feet. So can I ask maybe people who are on the call, just to, when we are working with horses and we see the heels that were trimmed out on the hind feet, to notice how the horses stand. It's just I'm doing my own research how when they trim, how this hoof problem, what kind of upper body issues it can cause. And I noticed in the horses that I work with that they have similar posture in the hind as this horse we have now. So one of the hind feet is always turned out to the outside.
Well, see, patterns.
Yeah. So I would be quite curious if maybe we notice also the postural differences in the hind. It would be great if we can share this info, or somebody can just send me a message or a picture. I would appreciate that.
And you know what else would be good is if you could start a Facebook group specifically for this research.
Oh, good. No, it's a good idea. You see, good that I mentioned it.
Yeah, start a group. You two get together, start a group, especially for this research and what you've been through. And because all these hoof diseases are getting worse and worse and worse because of the way they're trimming.
Because I have a 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old stallion that I really work very closely, and his posture is the same.
Yeah.
And he has sacrum issues, lumbar issues, and I was just wondering where it's coming from. And lots of horses with extreme trimmed out heels at the hind, they stand in exactly the same compensation pattern.
Yeah, and you also hear of some horses wanting to stand with their butt uphill.
Yes, well, naturally they will.
Which I find interesting.
Well, yeah, because they want to relieve the pressure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so do you think, so can you guys get together and do that? Start a research group on this specific thing?
Well, at least we can maybe collect the images at the beginning, because we don't need to put much effort in it. We just need
get the images, get the images and the story and stuff, but you got to have some place you can collect them. And so a Facebook group or something would be good.
Yeah, we'll think about it. I will think about it, and then I will make an announcement.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I got people in the group sometimes that argue with me about DSLD. No, it's hereditary. It's hereditary. They have never proven this is heredity. Okay? Never. It has no genetic markers. That's an opinion of someone, because they seem to run in families. Well, I've seen farriers go from generation to generation too, you know. And you not only have farriers go from generation to generation of horse, you have tradition in the show ring of what they think the foot should be, which also comes back to the farrier that is taught to grow the foot a certain way, right? So man-made. That's not to say that there couldn't be a situation where a foal has a congenital thing going on. But this is from the feet. I can tell that, first of all, you trim out the heels and then it makes the toe too long, when in reality, a lot of times it's not that the toe's too long, it's that the heels are trimmed out. So I want to show you this picture, see if you can see it. Just a second here, go back here, because we were talking about all this and Leah was sharing this stuff. See, you can see his bulbs under here, and the sulcus that should be vertical is being pulled under the foot. And look at how the bars are curving. Why? Because you're bending them. You're bending what they grow from under the foot. Yep, look right here. This should be up behind the foot, this little area here. Remember, I showed you there's a vertical part and a horizontal part to that sulcus of the frog corium that the frog is supposed to grow in. And so what you see here, this little thing here, this should be up further back in the foot. The bulbs are being pulled underneath the foot. And of course, now look at the bars. That's not the shape of the foot. That's not the dome. Now, some people would look at that foot and think it has heels. Where's the cartilage? Back here. Okay, these horses, even foals, they're still going to have cartilage. Yeah, see, this is all pulled down. Bars are being allowed to just take over here. That'll hold every dead frog, holding the whole foot underneath. See, these feet need to grow and expand. If you're not keeping that frog trimmed and all this in order, as the foot grows, the capsule, this part will hold the foot down while the rest of it's growing. And it won't expand like it's supposed to. I can see it's already being turned inward like this instead of expanding and growing the way it's supposed to.
Well, this is when he was very young.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd already been trimmed.
Yeah, and they don't get enough movement. And so their frogs just turn into one big dead, hard. Like you said, it's hard to trim him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that frog and that periopal it can get harder than hoof wall. And see, he's growing already, but his frogs are holding the back of his foot under and keeping it from expanding. I want to show this one picture here, if I can. That picture I showed you, that painting and that colt in that painting. Ah, here it is. Okay, so, you know, the indigenous people here in America had to make do with whatever horse they had. So what you don't see in this picture is down here is a war party. All right. And so this, and you can't hardly see the feet on this young horse, but this is like a long yearling, maybe a 2-year-old, if that. And you can tell he's been having the bejesus road out of him. But the something you see in his feet, and I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can find a better picture. Just a minute. Because the cartilage on this horse's feet and the bulbs are very much expanded, totally unlike her foal. Let me see if I can find a better picture. Oh, I did. Okay. New share. This is Frederick Remington. I can't remember. I think it's a Frederick Remington painting, who was a famous Western artist in the 1800s. So I don't know if you can see, but look at the, oh. Let's see. I'm gonna have to, just a second, I got a phone call. Okay. So these horses got a lot of movement. So they wore the frog down and they wore the periopal down as their feet expanded.
Did you want a different picture, Linda?
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Here we go. How's that? Okay, so you see, this is like, this could be in Nevada, could be in Arizona, all that. Same place that Chester was born in. You see the war party down here, hauling, you know what, and he's probably praying to the Great Spirit that they're going to win. So you see that this colt has been rode hard. This is maybe a 2-year-old, if that, yearling, year and a half. Okay, now I don't know if you can see it very good, but can you kind of see his feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can see he had huge cartilages and bulbs out here. That's because this horse, these guys, when they painted, they were realists. And so these horses, now they can be overworn too, all right? It doesn't mean that just because a horse is wild out here running around that they're always going to have anatomically correct feet. A lot of things can happen. There's such a delicate balance sometimes in these feet. But this young horse, you can see that he has way good cartilage. You can see that his bulbs are expanded. See? And so that's the same with our horses. Because they have such a sedentary lifestyle, we have to make sure that we're taking care of that trimming of that frog and that periopal between the bulbs. So as the foot is growing, the capsule is growing and expanding. And so one of the things they do in the method of barefoot trimming is they don't trim the frogs. So what do you get? You get a big, dead, hard frog that's binding that foot right where it's at. So when we start to correct these feet, we're wanting to get some moisture. We're wanting to starting to take the frog down, trim out between what is called the central sulcus, just things like that to help these feet expand as we're also growing in hoof wall that was taken out as the feet were incorrectly trimmed. So anyways, no copyright on this. It's 150 years old. So there you go. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so do we have anything else we need to talk about in this regard?
Linda, I have a question because the periopal at the back where you showed the pictures, it was attached to the hoof wall, and I sent you a picture maybe to your messenger because there is something different because the hoof was wet and we have the periopal flap. Okay. And I just wrote down my question there also. So
okay. Let's see.
I just want to make sure that it's the same case. It's just the periopal flap detached because of the moisture.
Okay. Just a minute here.
And his bulbs are really huge of this horse. I mean, they're bulging up. I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're talking about. Let me and
then, I mean, if we talk about periopal, maybe it's better just to make sure.
Okay, so what is happening, and this is what's happening if the heels are coming or going. Do you know what I mean by coming or going?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll explain it real quick, just so people know. When they or you are trimming the heels according to that method, the heels are going.
Yeah.
All right. And as the heels go, because there was periopal up here and the cartilage doesn't want to be pulled down and it stretches up, well, you'll find flaps of periopal. And you'll think your heels grew. But in reality, what happened was you trimmed the heel down to here. It pulled the cartilage and the periopal down. As the horse walked, his cartilage wanted to stretch back up.
Yeah.
And it wore that piece of periopal off, and you come out and you think, wow, my heel grew. And you have this strange periopal flap. This happened to me when I was trimming my horse's heels out, and I would trim them down to that certain measurement that I was given, and then I'd come out 3 or 4 days later, it looked like they grew, so I'd trim them down again, you know, and I totally trimmed his heels out and to where he had no heel buttress, and it was only bar and sidewall that was in front. Well, then I noticed when I was restoring my horse's feet, I would see these same periopal flaps. Because what's happening is your growth is staying up here. Let me draw. So in this case, the heels are coming in. All right. But you had this, it was still down here, and your hoof wall was only this high. Okay. But because it's wet and you're keeping some weight down here, because this is pulling up, it's under constant pressure to pull up and back and go back to where it wants to be. And so you're weighting this part of the heel by allowing this part of the hoof wall to be longer than the sole, so that the pressure is pushing up this way. Because, you know, the hoof wall from up here at the coronary band, it attaches to the lamina, and then it slides down where it grows out past the sole, and then you trim it off, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, instead of this piece growing down and past the sole back here, we're wanting it to grow from here, and as it grows, it stays up here. It stays up here, and the cartilage is rising. Well,
so if you see lots of horses, like I have the mare that we were looking recently at, and her periopal, especially at the front, at the quarters, stretches to half of the hoof, and now it's coming off.
Yeah.
So if the periopal is so far down the hoof, it's a sign of unhealthy condition.
Right.
Okay.
And you'll start getting better quality hoof wall as well.
Okay.
And so like you look right here, see what happened was some of this wall grew in here. Well, there was a periopal here holding that old part, holding to the old part right here. And so when the wall grew in up here, it let loose right there.
Yeah. Okay, great.
See?
Well, I'm
But
happy we spoke about it.
yeah,
to
so
confirm that.
both ways. Yeah, I noticed that I was getting periopal flaps growing in the wall as well as when I was removing it. But then all that quits once you get those heels in there and maintain them where they're at.
Good.
You won't get big flaps like that again. Okay. So, okay. Roberta, I don't know if we're going to have time to go to discuss your horse today, but I'll be glad to get with you on Messenger.
Okay.
And talk to you about him. Okay.
Perfect.
Because we're coming up on 1:59, and it seems like we go about 3 hours when we do this. That's hard to believe, isn't it? And what did we cover? you know, but this is the most simple, complex subject, I swear. You know, it's simple and complex at the same time. It takes a lot of explaining. There's a lot going on. Okay, so I'll open the floor to anybody for the next 5-10 minutes here, and then we'll part ways. Anybody got anything they want to say? If not, we'll leave.
No.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So if your bulbs release in a smaller capsule and you're wanting your hoof to grow, do you have to bevel to kick the tubules back? Am I making any sense?
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. When I first started doing this, I saw that I was going to have some heel to be able to get any of these tubules to kick back. That I was going to have some height in the back. That just a minute here. Let me annotate here. That if, say, my foot was like this, okay, and these were real short or non-existent back here, it was going to be really hard for let's see, something is going on here that I can't get my annotate correctly. Okay, it was going to be real hard for something that was like this to kick back something that was so short back there. Okay, so my idea was that I would grow all this up like so and make it higher, so that then these would be able to come back and then kick, because you know it's like dominoes, kick, you know, and then finally kick these back up. But then another thing I realized was I didn't have enough grown back here yet. I mean, you can move some of this back, but really until you get more of the back of your foot so that it's grown back here, like so, you're gonna have a hard time getting some of these to really move back. So you kind of get the cart before the horse sometimes. And it's not that you don't work on these at all, but it's this, that you got to keep remembering that you're working on getting this stuff here to grow back in. And even if your heels seem run forward like that, it's still okay. Don't be freaking out at it. It's still okay to still try to keep growing this wall in. Every once in a while, you'll just kind of do a reset that'll take them a little further back, and you'll be able to work on getting some of this back here too. But you got to always remember that your foot is not correct, so you can't really get all these horn tubules to line up perfectly until you get more hoof wall in back here. So you kind of have to work back and forth on that.
Well, at the moment, his heels are at 5.5 and 6, the length.
Right here?
Yeah, in centimeters.
In centimeters?
Yeah.
Okay, and you know that his cartilages are still pretty bound up, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can see the tilt shot I sent you. They're like ice cream cones in a sense.
Okay, let's see. You sent some pictures. Let's see.
It's from Elena. Yeah, and the first batch.
The first batch.
So no, go back, go down, and this one. Yeah, next after the first one. No, this is the last one. This is no, up. Go up this one's. Yeah, this is
this
the
one.
batch. Yeah, this is from today actually.
Okay, and this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. How the whole back of the foot gets pulled under, and then they call that a central sulcus. Let me draw on it here. Annotate. Draw. Okay, draw. All right, see this here? And then that there. That shouldn't be, this shouldn't be under the foot like that. These are the bulbs pulled under the foot. This is the part here that should be up behind the foot.
Oh.
See, it gets totally pulled under and it becomes this funky diamond looking thing. Here, I think I can get away with this. Because I'll just have to put a disclaimer. Okay, this is fair use, people. Okay, fair use, because I was looking at this earlier. Just a minute here. Well, I might not have it here. So, well, wait a minute. Oh, okay. Let's look at this real quick. This is an unborn foal's foot that has all the skin removed and all you see is the corium over the whole thing. Okay, so real quick, just for education and comment and all that stuff that the FU copyright, fair use, that means fair use. Copyright deal says, let's see.
But we can't see the picture of the foal.
Okay, I'm getting there. Okay, right here. Has anybody else seen this picture?
No.
Yeah, it's on the internet. It's Van Horst. He does a lot of really wonderful work in dissecting and making slides and stuff like that. What I want you to see here is the frog corium right here that is under the foot. That is, this part is horizontal under the foot, but this part up between here is, you can't see it, but it's behind the foot. See, it's vertical and this part is horizontal. Okay, so and you look how the heel buttress ends right here. Just a minute. Heel buttress ends right here. That would be your heel buttress right there on your wall. But look at your frog corium, how it's behind your heel buttress. See, behind your heel buttress. And then it's not flat and all under the foot. This part of it is up back here. And this part, the other part of the diamondy shape, is underneath. Okay, I better get out of there. Just a second here. Okay, so now this part should be only under the foot, but this part should be up behind the foot. They're all drawing, but it all gets pulled down under the foot. New share. Let's see here, just a second. That was pretty good that you posted that, because that was exactly what I was describing earlier in this other foot, which will end with this. Show it real quick here. New share. I'm going to have to go back real quick here. Aha, there we go. Here's to our good foot again. Well, I should have done this a little differently. Okay, there you see it. See, that's vertical. It's a little blurry. This part's behind the foot, vertical, but this part is down below the foot. And so you shouldn't be seeing this part or the outline underneath the foot. And you see, here's the part of the bulb there that was pulled underneath that foot. as well. There we go. We can look at it again. Again, this is behind, should be vertical. This should not be flat, laying under the foot or even partially under the foot. Okay, here's even better. Okay, again, it bends right here and goes under the foot. Do you see that now? It is, are you understanding what I'm saying here? That this is all cartilage and fat and can get totally bent and deformed underneath the foot?
Yes.
Okay, and then it's not going to function correctly, is it?
Mm-mm.
See, you got to watch those videos I got on YouTube of how the frog functions. I got 2 different feet. I got my mare. And at the time I was doing her, she's on the main display video there. At the time I was doing her, I didn't know too that her foot was, her cartilages were still bound somewhat. But the other horse is almost a perfect foot. And even though he was trimmed by the same barefoot trimmer, because he had a big, thick, dead frog, that person did not trim the heels out. And so he escaped. He had almost perfect back feet, but his front feet were wholly foundered, rotated, and destroyed. So why? Because it didn't have that big, thick frog. And so that person kept trimming the heels down, and the foot was rotating up out of the capsule. Okay, well, that's it. Boy, okay, so we went to 212. We've had a great day. Hey, you guys are great. And Roberta, if you want to get a hold of me a little bit later, we can talk over your horse's situation, okay?
All right, I appreciate it.
Okay, dear. Hey, everybody have a great week, and hope to see you here next week. We'll be talking to you throughout the week, okay?
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 And now I'm lost and don't know how to get out of here.
I don't either.
You have entered the Twilight Zone. Let's see here. More.